back to Ghostly-Glitchez. I guess you're here for the first portion of the campfire stories that we're going to start telling. I was a kid of the 1990s. I grew up in a small farm town Midwest family, so it was a pretty normal, ideal summer for our parents to throw us into the back of a car, drive us halfway across the country or to some other state, stop and see every tourist attraction along the way and every crazy thing that there was to say or see. Now, back then I would have complained about it. I'm not home watching Nickelodeon, Rugrats, or the Wild Thornberrys or anything like that, but nowadays I miss it. I've become quite the outdoorsman. I love camping, so we're going to do our first campfire tale, and ironically, this story takes place on a camping trip, and it's another one of mine. This is the story of Indian caves and the half-breed cemetery. This one tugs in my heart a little bit too, you'll understand why. So, when I was growing up, 5th grade was not where you graduated and went on to junior high school. 6th grade was the last year of elementary school years. And at my school, back in Tecumseh, Nebraska, one of the greatest things that the kids looked forward to was the 6th grade camping trip that took place at the end of the year. It was a chance to go out with your friends in your class, which of course in that town was like 12 people. It was a chance to hang out, chase the girls that you liked. I remember a few girls in that class that I was trying to chase down. Hang out with your best friends, you know, and really blow off steam, play pranks on your teachers, run around the woods and do the things that we did. Things that kids nowadays, unfortunately, will probably never get to do. So we get to the end of our 6th grade year and our teacher loads us up and, you know, we head out to Indian caves on this road trip. And I remember it being like a big adventure for us, being away from our parents on this camping trip. But truthfully, we were gone for a night. Anyway, it didn't stop it from being fun though, but we got there, we get to the state park. Spend a lot of the day hiking, going into the caves, teachers showing us all the things that teachers show you, all the geeky stuff, like how this cave echoes across to this cave. We're getting on a trail, we spooked the girls because all the boys found a snake and then ran up the trail after them with the snake until one of our teachers, Mr. V, let's leave it at that, I don't want to say anybody's name, they might get upset if they see the video, but Mr. V got mad at us and took the snake from us. Luckily, Mr. V was also a fan of creepy crawlies, so he didn't kill the snake or hurt the snake, he just put it back in the trees and let it go. We're having a great time, running around the woods, playing capture the flag, just doing all the things kids do. We knew our teachers were going to try to scare us. We'd heard the stories about all the 6th grade teachers trying to get over on the students, especially the boys who made their year miserable. So we knew it was coming. About 10 o'clock at night, it came, Mr. V and Mr. S. But I think Mr. S was kind of crazy anyway. This guy was psychotic. Teachers did the things that he did. They wouldn't get away with it nowadays. I remember a kid falling asleep in his class. This teacher threw an eraser across the room and hit him in the head to wake him up and then screamed at him. Screamed at me a couple times for doing stupid things now too, but I'm just saying, wouldn't get to do that anyway these days. But Mr. S and Mr. V, they wake us all up, get us out of our tents, and take us on a hike. And for us, it probably felt like 40 minutes. I think in reality, it was like 10. We went behind, there was this old church in Indian Cave State Park, and behind it was a trail that was almost overgrown and covered by the woods. We go hike down the trail, and in the back of the cemetery, or in the back of the church, was a cemetery, an old cemetery from the time of like the colonial and all that. And the sign out front of the cemetery literally said the half-breed cemetery. As 6th grade farm kids, we didn't know what that was. And then Mr. S decided to tell the story. He told a story of how Indian caves used to be home to the native tribes in the Midwest. And then, like many other places in America, sadly, the colonies, they moved in, they took over. The Midwest, especially in that area where we grew up in Nebraska, you had the Indian frontier wars. So the colonizers started to do things to harm the land and steal it from the Native Americans and then cause harm and destruction to their way of life. Naturally, the two sides didn't like each other, but in Indian caves, they coexisted for a while. So what the half-breeds was every now and then a Native American and a colonizer would get together and they would have a baby. The natives didn't want the baby because it reminded them of the colonial people who came and destroyed their way of life. And the colonial Christians didn't want the baby because that baby was not supposed to be there. You know? Something that wasn't supposed to happen. So these half-breeds were put into an orphanage and then eventually established a little colony of their own because nobody else would accept them or take them. So when they died, they had their own cemetery where they would bury these half-breed children. Eventually there was a couple stories that occurred that the teacher was telling us about. The one in particular I remember was an old woman from the colonial village who was robbed and found murdered in her house without a trial or anything like that. They accused a half-breed of doing it. So they went to the village, stole him out their house, lynched him up in a tree in the half-breed cemetery right above the tombstones. Pretty horrible things. The teacher said some bad things started to happen to the colonial people after that. And then eventually through the years, whether it was curse or disease or the change of the world, people just started to die. The colony didn't really make it. There was other colonies that were established in Nebraska that started to succeed and overgrow and populate. And the Native Americans either left going north to Canada or they were ravaged and killed by disease and war. So, this is where the part of the story gets interesting. The teachers, trying to scare all of us, decided that we're not going to walk back as a class on the trail. They gave us one flashlight and put us in partners of two. And they said you have to walk back on the trail by yourselves. And of course the purpose of this was Mr. S would stand in the back and send you off, while Mr. V would stand in the front and jump out the bushes trying to scare you. After the first couple people that heard Mr. V trying to scare these kids, because it's like maybe 12 feet. It didn't really work anymore, but it was still them trying to have fun and us being kids. I remember that my best friends, once again I'm not going to say their names because I don't want to upset anybody or their families. Let's call them Mark and George. Mark and George, they got to walk together. They got to partner up and go down the trail. And I was pissed because I got left with the class weird kid. You know, let's call him Kevin. And Kevin was just the strange kid nobody liked, nobody wanted to hang around with. He was kind of weird. I got put in a tent with Kevin, and I had to walk down the trail with Kevin. I just remember Mr. V didn't even hear us coming. We got to the end of the trail, and he didn't even jump out at us either. He was tired of the joke, figured we all knew about it, or he just didn't even hear us coming. But I remember telling Kevin, if you make one noise or act like, you know, a scaredy cat on this trail, I'm going to beat the crap out of you. Kevin didn't say a thing. He walked back. And then I got back with Mark and George, and we started walking back to the campsite. And never forget, there was a girl in our class. Let's call her Lindsay. And Lindsay turned around and screamed. Like screamed a terrifying scream. It made all of us jump and turn around, including the teachers. And I remember Mr. S running up to Lindsay and, "What's wrong, Lindsay? What's going on?" She pointed up at the trees, at the top of these giant pine trees in the park, and she was like, "Didn't you see that?" Everybody, of course, no, nobody saw anything. "What are you talking about?" She goes, "It looked like a cloak, like something was floating in the trees, like it was following us." Mr. S looked up, he said, "Lindsay, there's nothing there." Lindsay was like, "I swear there was." So Mr. V walked around, searched around the trees a little bit, and he ended up finding like a discarded trash bag that was blowing around the tree trunks, and said, "Maybe this is what you saw. Maybe it blew up in the trees. It scared you. And then, you know, it blew down and landed on the ground." Said, "It's all right, Lindsay, so let's go back and go to bed." Well, we did go back. Everybody got in their tents. Kyle fell asleep right away, which was awesome because I stayed up talking to the other boys in the campsite and stuff for a while. And then I went... Alright, so I lost my train of thought for a minute. Sorry about that. I'm no crypt keeper or Volta Horror, but, you know, I'm trying. So anyway, we go back. Kevin goes right to sleep. Awesome. Now I'm up fucking around with the rest of the class, you know. We're all hanging out playing, you know, catch the girls and kiss them. You remember that game. Don't act like I'm weird. Anyway, then we go to sleep. And that night, I had the absolute most terrifying nightmare I've ever had in my life. The nightmare, I woke up in my tent on the campgrounds on the trip that we were on. I'm sweating bullets, trying to wake up Kevin, shake him awake, see if something's going on because it feels cold. Kevin's not waking up, so I unzip the tent, walk outside to see if maybe I overslept if it's daytime, it's still dark. And I walk up by where we had the fireplace set at the campsite. I notice all the other tents are shut and nobody else is open. And then I feel something grip me on the shoulder. So I turn around and there's a cloaked figure. Just like the one that Lindsay described when she looked up at the trees. The thing that made her scream. This thing didn't say a word to me. I couldn't see its face. It was clearly floating off the ground. It had no legs. And there was like hands, but they were covered in gloves, so I couldn't tell you what was underneath the cloak. Didn't say a word to me. Put its hand up over my mouth to keep me quiet. When I shook my head that I would, it raised its hand to me with 3 fingers. And then it put 2 of them down. Then I woke up. It was the next morning. I woke up to all the kids screaming and running around, having fun outside and all this, and the teachers telling everybody to shut up and keep it down while they were trying to load the vehicles so we could go back. But George and Mark were sitting by the fire, like not saying a thing, so I went and talked to them and I was like, man, I had a weird dream last night. And I remember George turning around, what'd you dream about? Like suddenly his interest was piqued, and I told him about the dream I had on the campsite and seeing the cloaked figure, and I just think that Lindsay's scream and story really got to me. And then George looked terrified, and I asked him, I said, what's wrong? He said, I dreamt about that too. Me and him, we were just talking about it. Same thing. He said, is that possible? Can people even share the same dream? I said, I don't know, but it's pretty freaky, so let's stop talking about it. Okay. Trip ended. One of the best trips of my life in my youth. We went back, started into junior high in 7th grade. About halfway through that year, I actually moved. My dad got a new job in a local city, and I moved. And I tried to stay in touch with Mark and George a lot when I come back to see my grandparents in town and stuff. But you know, we just grew apart. Kids do when you grow up. You start to grow apart. But that memory on that trip, it always tripped me out about sharing the same dream and this creepy thing that happened. And I never thought too much about it until our 10th grade year. Mark and George died in a car accident on Valentine's Day. We were in the car together. We got into the wreck, just a tragic thing that happened. It turned the town upheaval. They said we were a class of like 12 people. You know, everybody was there. The church so stocked out for the funeral. They had to put people in the hall, the fellowship hall next door, and you had to watch the funeral on TV. It was one of the most tragic moments in my life, and 2 of the best friends I ever had. One of the saddest memories. And I guess I make this point to state, though, the one thing that's gone through my mind after that situation is the cloaked figure in the dream with the 3 fingers, and they put them down to 1. I could be overthinking it. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. Like I said, I think certain people are just connected to the world of spirits more than other people are. I feel like dreams can be messages. They can tell you things. I don't know what it was trying to tell me. I don't know if I'm even reading it right or assuming that what I know is correct, but 3 friends, 2 of them died. And I've lived the rest of my life missing the 2 of those guys. They're like brothers to me. I feel like the dream was to reveal a tragedy that was to occur in the future. But it was a really spooky, interesting story that actually occurred in my life, and at the same time one of the saddest moments I had to go through. So that's the first campfire tale. It's Indian Caves and the Half-Breed Cemetery. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Tune in for the next one.